All right, everyone, it's time to get started. In fact, I think we talked a little too long, Derreck, but I enjoy him. I love his personality. And so welcome to tonight's asset protection webinar. If you've joined us for the very first time, I'm really excited about this topic. But if you're brand new to us, this is an ongoing webinar series that's been going on a very long time. Just the last few months, we've had some really incredible webinars. And we've got a lot more coming up. I think next week we've got Chris Brown and one of the CPAs from Tax Hive talking about tax strategies right before you file your taxes. We've got some really good things coming up. So all of the webinars that we do are recorded. They're free for 30 days. They're all available on our YouTube channel. And you can always go to YouTube and then look for us under Protect Wealth Academy, hit the subscribe button, and you'll have access to all the things that we've done. We usually keep webinars on for about 30 days. And then after that, we kind of rotate them in and out. And it's like Disney movies. Yeah, maybe we put this one on hold for a few months and then bring it back, and I don't know, whatever. But we've got hundreds of webinars that we've taught and hundreds and hundreds of hours, and we don't want to inundate anybody, so we do rotate them through. But at least if you miss one, it'll be available on our YouTube channel. And then we've got two summits coming up right away that you could sign up for. One is April 24th, 25th, 26th. This is where we're bringing some of the best of the best instructors. We're rotating them in and out. It's not always the same people, but the core, which is generally Clint Coons, Scott Estel, and myself, are there every time. Mike Koval, I don't think he's missed for quite a while. Here's what's happening in the market. So encourage you to attend one of these. And the only thing, this used to be a $3,000 class to attend this. With Zoom, we've been able to open it up because we're not traveling and we're not buying coffee and meal tickets and we're not paying for the whole staff to travel and bring in all the speakers. We can open this up, but the thing that I've noticed with these Zoom events is that people are a little cavalier in attending. What we ask, and we're fairly serious about this, is that you give us 3 days. Don't come in and learn half of a tax strategy, half of a legal strategy, because then you become really dangerous. So the theme of our class is a lifetime to accumulate, 3 days to protect. Give us 3 days. Let us teach you from A to Z how to do things, and then you'll be much better equipped to handle. We're not trying to make you a junior attorney to go save the world. Just be able to run your business, how to run your life, how to do estate planning, how to save money on taxes. Learn the strategies that we teach, and they do change, and so be aware of those. But you're always welcome to attend this. And then the last thing I want you to, we just barely started a brand new series. If you have not liked us on Facebook or connected with us on Facebook, we've got a brand new series of these are tax tips, and every day we're posting a new one. And they're I don't know, I think we're up to about 50 or so tax tips. Here's what we consider to be the top tax tips on how to save money on taxes. And so pay attention to those. Like us on Facebook or connect with us, whatever you want to call it. And you'll, again, go to Facebook. We're under Protect Wealth Academy. Hit the like button, or I think it's subscribe on YouTube and like on Facebook, but connect with us and watch for those, because there's some valuable stuff in there we want you to be aware of. And lastly, before we get started, Derreck isn't going to recommend any particular investments. We don't do that. We're not here to give tax or legal advice. We're here to teach principles. We're here to teach general principles, and how they apply to you and your situation is really a matter for you and your accountant or attorney. But as all we can do in a general session is teach general principles, and don't take this as specific to you. Derreck, is that clear enough?
Oh,
Is
yeah,
that about your
absolutely.
disclaimer? Okay, well, there, and you'll probably have your own. That's okay. Derreck, I'm excited about this topic because so many people think, oh, I don't have enough money to invest, and I've got to save and save and save. And we really never save enough to become wealthy. We have to learn to invest.
Absolutely.
And we have to start with, sometimes little amounts. And to do it wisely, my wife and I started with little amounts 2 or 3 times, blew it on a hot tax.
Oh, the next hot penny stock or something.
Oh,
yeah,
my gosh. I remember years ago we bought Chicago Sun-Times because her uncle knew that it was going to double, and we put, I think, all of our savings into it, which at that time was like $17,000, and then it bankrupted and it was worth nothing. It's like, oh man, that sucked. And we did that 2 or 3 times, and learning the principles of investing and who to trust is such a critical thing. Derreck, so excited you're here. Turn time over to you, and you take control of the screen, and we're excited to have you here.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Don. Once you stop sharing, then I'll share my screen and I'll get started, guys. Now, as we go through this, we've already kind of alluded to it, but I want to make sure that everyone out there gets their questions answered. Okay. Use the chat box, right? Leverage the Q&A box. Every time something comes in, I will pause, I'll read it, I'll answer it. You're not going to interrupt me. Now, I do call this making big bucks with small accounts. And I like to remind everyone out there that I am what they call a retirement expert. All right. I literally sit down and I read IRS revenue code, publications, other types of tax code, and study court cases and how it really revolves around a retirement account. So this could be a self-directed IRA, a Roth IRA, a health savings account, a 401k. It doesn't matter. That is what my background is in. Saying that, though, anything I talk today can apply to not just an IRA, but apply to your personal self as well. Whether you have $1,000 in your checking account, $1,000 in a self-directed IRA, or maybe just $1,000 left over in that LLC, you can take anything that we're going to be going over, right? As Don said already too, my disclaimer, once everything I talk about, of course, is only going to be for your education. You guys are more than welcome to these slides. I'll email them over to you if you'd like. All you got to do is email me. My email is right there as my name in the chat box, okay? But as Don was saying, everything we talk about today is just for educational purposes. No tax, legal, investment advice on this specific platform, okay? All that being said, I always tell people, I kind of grew up in Alaska, but I graduated college out in Arizona. I spent 4 years in the military as a Apache mechanic. I do have a degree in global marketing. And since then, I've honestly just been on multiple different business ventures. I own rentals. I own mineral rights, which I'm a big fan of right now because they're making more money than my rentals. But I started off being a private lender, lending small amounts of capital. So we're going to see some of those, but we're going to see how you can be either a lender, a wholesaler, some rentals, and how you can pick up anything like this for less than $10,000. So knowing that, all right, we got to know kind of what we need to do and how to go about it. So how do we make a small amount of money big? Leverage. Now, anytime I talk about this, we have to figure out then what can we leverage? And if I know I'm leveraging something, right, I know I can leverage things like maybe my cash. If I have $1 million, I can leverage $1 million to make me more money. And we get that. And we understand the leverage is, a small initial something to maybe make it larger. But we always see these millionaires and these billionaires, man, it'd be so easy to make $1 million if I already had $1 million, right? It'd be so easy to make $1 billion if I already had $1 billion. Well, of course it would be. So if I can't leverage money, I got to figure out what else can I leverage when I don't have the money. So I kind of broke it down to different categories, and I have different types of leverage. And this is just kind of maybe my personal view and kind of how I look at it. So we already talked that we know we can leverage money. But if I don't have money, I don't have a lot of money, I need to be able to leverage something else. And I like to first start off with time. And time breaks down to two different categories. Time being, do I have a lot of time during the day? All right, what do I mean by that? Right, maybe I don't work a full 40 hours a week at a job, right? Well, that means I probably have some extra time to go out and look for more investments. I have extra time to do due diligence. I have extra time to go through something like that. This is one form of time, right? The other form of time I can leverage, though, is maybe what is the investment? Some investments out there, the goal is to put a small amount of capital in and wait 10, 15, 20 years. And at the end of a 20-year time frame, that investment's going to be worth 100 times what it is today. So if I think of my grandma is 88 years old. She might have a lot of time today to do due diligence, but she doesn't realistically have a lot of time to wait 20 years for that investment to pay off, right? I, on the other hand, I literally work 67, 70 hours a week right now because it's the tax deadline. So I don't have a lot of time to do due diligence, but I'm only 36 years old. So I have time to put my money to work and let it sit and kind of grow. So we're going to figure out what type of time we can leverage through some of these investments you'll see. I can also leverage what I call my talent. Now, I have a really weird talent over a lot of people out there, and I think me and Dawn fall into a similar category, is no one likes to read court cases. No one likes to read revenue code. No one likes to read tax code, but I'm good at it. Why am I good at it? Is I can actually comprehend a lot of what is being talked about and relate it back and forth. So I would argue that's my talent, right? Me and Don are joking before we jumped on this. My talent and his talent is not computers. You don't come to me to do a whole bunch of research on a computer. You don't come to me to build a PowerPoint. So all of us out there have different talents, and we're going to see what type of talents can lead us, all right, to build more capital. And then lastly, and probably the absolute most important, is my network. You'll read it in every book. You'll hear every millionaire say it. Your network is your net worth. And if you don't have a large network and you don't want to get out of that shell, guys, none of these other things is going to matter at all. So we got to figure out how can I leverage money, time, talent, and my network in each individual investment. And we're going to go through multiple different investments on here to figure out which one's going to make the most sense for you. So we're going to start off with case study 1. We're going to dive right on in. Now, all these case studies are either from current clients of mine, and I can even introduce you to most of them, or my own personal deals. And I'm going to show you exactly what those look like. And you're going to see some of the contracts and the notes and how we drafted them and those type of things. So as we go through this, remember, ask the questions, use your Q&A box, use your chat box. So we're going to start with kids, right? I always joke, I say children are very expensive, and we get that. Now, I have dogs. Me and my wife, we don't have kids. We have dogs because we like dogs. But a lot of people out there have kids. So one of the things I always hear is, well, I need to try to save money for college. And so they set up these 529 plans. I'm not a big fan of the 529 plans because they're typically state specific, and you can't use them for all education expenses. So there's a lot of leeway in these. And so I don't like the 529 plans, but there's something called an ESA, or an education savings account. Now, these accounts, you can't shovel in a whole bunch of money. You can only put in about $2,000 per child per year. So I want you to understand that we're going to go with $2,000 in this investment and figure out what we can do if I was to set up an education savings account for my kids to pay for school, right? So Alan, what's unique is you can read the screen if you want. I'm just going to kind of tell you the little story about him, but he runs a group out here in Texas called Cowboys in Real Estate, right? He's a good wholesaler, and he does options. Now, I suck at wholesaling. So if you're out there and this is you, this case study is for you. But he's really good at wholesaling or doing options on houses, right? And pretty much what he decided to do is he said, hey, look, my kid goes to private school. Now, I pay about $13,000 a year for private school. Now, if you as an individual were to make $13,000, what ultimately happens is that $13,000 first has to get taxed before you make it, or before you spend it, sorry. So Alan had a great idea. I'm going to put $1,000 instead into an education savings account, this ESA. Now, he found a distressed seller who inherited the property. It was out in San Antonio. And he said, hey, look, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and do a wholesale style contract. And I'm going to put the house under contract for $100. Now, I would argue the way he structured this, and I can send you a copy of the contract, he should have put down more for legal reasons, but he chose to do $100. So $100 didn't come from Alan's personal pocket. $100 did not come from his LLC. It came from the education savings account. This means that when he actually put the house under contract, it wasn't in his name, it's in the ESA's name, right? So this is he's not doing anything different. He just chose to use a different vehicle. Now, ultimately, when he used this, I always say, hey, look, you got to look at what the name is. And an ESA is technically a legal entity. It has its own name, its own address. It can have its own tax ID number. In most cases, it will even have its own level of asset protection. So when he makes the offer, we see the physical name, and it will read something like your custodian's name. So I'm with Quest, so Quest Trust Company, for the benefit of his kid's name, ESA 12345. The $100 then comes from his ESA account. Overall, a few months goes by, he ends up wholesaling the contract. If you know anything about wholesaling, right, this is nice to see. Now, he made $10,000 during this transaction. Great. He was a wholesaler. He was able to wholesale it, but he immediately withdrew $5,000 to pay for like immediate school expenses for his kid. Now, what's unique about that is if Alan did this exact same transaction using the $100, what would ultimately happen is, hey, I have to pay taxes on the 10 grand, then I get to spend it. The ESA is a 100% tax-free vehicle. That means when he made that $10,000, it was tax-free. He pulled out $5,000 tax-free and paid for his kids' school. Now, remember, all he invested was $100. I argue he should have put at least another zero on there and did 1,000. That's me. I'm a lot more conservative. So what are some of the things that we like to see is, A, we had some problems in there, is he had to provide a lot of services, right? He also had to have a lot of network to be able to sell this property or to wholesale this. So let's figure out what are some of the solutions to all these types of problems. A, he could have done a double closing, let the IRA actually hold title to the property. He needs to avoid marketing for these types of deals. And I like to see people be more passive. So ultimately, I'm flying through this case study. We're going to spend more time on these ones. I don't mind this being a wholesaler. I have an issue with wholesalers in the aspect that a lot of people are sold on, hey, look, you only need to invest $100. And the example that I showed you. So this could work if you're out there. You could invest a very small dollar figure, but first off, guys, you got to build a network. So Alan, notice I said he runs Cowboys in real estate out here in San Antonio. And as he runs this group, he has a very large network of people. So it was easy for him to wholesale a contract that he was able to get under, under lock and key. So make sure if you're going to be doing something like this, then, hey, have a big network. Let's dive into some of the better ones that I really enjoy. So we're going to switch gears. And we're going to talk about a little bit more taking title to property, because I like these type of deals. I'm not a big wholesaler. So case study 2 is a partnering one. This is actually a real piece of the land that I purchased. I found this piece of land out in Ocala, Florida. Anyone knows where Ocala, Florida is? It's horse country and has like multi-millionaires or hardcore rednecks out there in Florida. It's going to be one of the two. So I found this cheap piece of land. It was right off of 200, the road, and the total price was $9,500. I did not have $9,500. Didn't have it. But my buddy Brian from the military, I called him up and said, hey man, I found this cheap piece of land. Maybe we can split it 50-50. Maybe we can take our and we come in, we just buy this piece of land, and I'm telling you, Brian, look, we're young enough. We can sit on this chunk of land right here. And in 5, 10, 15 years, this land will be worth way, way more than $9,500. So all we each have to do is put in the $4,700, the $4,750, right? And we'll be good to go. I sell them on it. I say, great, Brian, let's partner together. Let's do this deal. Now, we decided to use our IRAs because, once again, I'm a retirement expert. That's where my knowledge really comes into play. And honestly, we planned on sitting on this property for a long, long time. So when we purchased it, the real estate agent drafted up the contract, and she drafted, her name was Teresa McCormick, and she's actually still a real estate agent out there to this day. This is the name you see right there on there. Is that Quest Trust Company for the benefit of Derreck's IRA 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as to an undivided interest of 50%, and Brian's IRA as to an undivided interest of 50%. This means at closing, when we purchased this land, we each sent $4,700 to the title company. So we're going to get to some of the unique things about this near the end of this case study. But notice, very simple, very basic. The first thing I want everyone to take away is, A, I found a deal. And instead of me saying, man, I don't have enough money to do it, I started looking elsewhere. The biggest problem I see people have when they don't have enough money is they don't want to share the deal, though. Why not? Option 1, you have the cash. Option 2, you don't have the cash. If you don't have the cash, bring in a partner. And that's what I did. Just because I'm giving up 50% of the deal doesn't mean that it's a bad deal. I might not make as much as I thought I was going to, and we'll see what that looks like here in just a second. But ultimately, partnering with someone can be an easy aspect. Remember, that's your net work. So what was really cool is something actually magical happened. I don't know if you guys can see my mouse, but if you can, I'm circling right now, right where that picture of that land was. And here's where that land was that we went and purchased. Do you guys see this big old golf course here in the background? What happened was the HOA area and this little golf club community, they wanted that piece of land for a long, long time. They didn't even realize it was up for sale because they kind of gave up on it. So very shortly after we bought it, they reached out to Teresa McCormick, who was the agent, and said, hey, you know what? Would they be willing to sell it to us? And we said, sure. We just figured we'd try to double it. And so we stupidly said that we would take $15,500. That was it. They said, yep, sold. And they bought it immediately. We probably could have asked for 20 and they would have said that. So I wish we would have. Out of dumb luck, we got really, really lucky. Remember, our plan was to sit on this land for a long period of time. But this means that each of us got back $7,700. And I like to say that that whole $7,700 was 100% tax-free because we used a Roth IRA. If you did this deal personally, that $7,700 comes back to you. Subtract your principal. The money you made in this deal right here would, yes, be taxable. So I used an IRA. Therefore, I like to say building wealth through unique techniques. But here's the thing. Let's look at some takeaways. Notice, first off, we had to partner 2 individuals together. All right? Great. Don't walk away from investment because you're afraid of partnering with someone. If you're going to partner with them, make sure you know them. Make sure you're ready, willing to do business. Do your own due diligence. Absolutely. All right? The percentage of return, if we really look at what we invested versus what we made, was about 58%. 58%. That's insane. I could have let my $4,700 just sit in the checking account and done nothing with it, or I could have done something small, quick, and easy like this and made a way better rate of return. Too many times you guys are out there and you're listening to this, how can I invest with 10K or less? And you're hoping I'm going to show you how to take $10,000 and invest in the next Apple company, right? That's not going to happen, guys. If you're out there and you can invest $10,000 and tomorrow it turns into $1 million, awesome. You are the one in a billion, right? You won the lottery, congratulations, but that's not what you should be looking for. We were able to make a 58% rate of return using a small amount of capital, and now I have more money to invest my second time around, my third time around, my fourth time around. So we need to build up this capital and get above 10 grand. Okay. I like to say you can always do this with your kids. If you heard me and Don early on, we were talking about how I got started in this. My dad would do a bunch of small investments like this, and I'd always partner with him on them. And it kind of is a unique way to teach your kids. Because I promise you, if they're under the age of 25, whatever you're saying, they don't care, right? Because they know better. But somehow you get older and they go, maybe that old man knew something, right? All profits in our case were tax-free because we used an IRA. And I like to say that notice how me and my friend Brian were in control the whole time. If I would have left that $4,700 that we used to buy the land in a checking account, we just had a big banking crash, right? That everyone saw, and a lot of people freaked out. Well, I'll put it in the stock market. Can I make the stocks go up in value? Nope. Can I make them go down in value? Nope. So I like to know I can be in control with these smaller types of investments. So ultimately, I love this aspect. I love going through the land. I think it's great. So what was leverage? Remember, we have to figure out overall, if we're going to leverage something besides money, then what can I leverage? First off, my network. Who was in my network? A buddy of mine that I knew had another $4,700 that was just chilling, and it was an easy, safe deal that he felt secured with, right? My time. Now, I say my time because originally, remember, we wanted to sit on this little chunk of land for 10, 15, 20 years. So I like to add the time in there because the original plan was to just let that land sit, pay a small amount in property taxes each year, right? You don't need to hold insurance. You didn't need to clear the land. We didn't care anything about it. So we got lucky that we sold it. What's unique right now, if you go and look at that same chunk of land, there's a little caddy shack that's built on it, and it's probably worth several $100,000 now. Lastly, is I didn't have enough capital for me, so I leveraged other people's money. We can still leverage money, but you can't leverage yours because you're short on it. So leverage someone else's. And this is going to be a key topic we see very consistently. So if you want to invest with a small amount of money, we got to figure out what we're leveraging: time, network, and other people's money. Case study number 3, right? Boom. What was this one? The lending and the borrowing. Oh, okay. I like this one. Okay. So this was, I got really lucky here. I had a buddy of mine, his name was Waleed. His dad actually had to keep a line of credit open. So to keep a line of credit open, he had to have so much cash and stuff coming in. So he found this house. He bought it for $120,000. The rehab was in between 60 and 70. It actually ended up being a little bit more, but the ARV was 275. All right. Sounds like a good deal. Whether you're doing it as a fix and flip or a rental, doesn't matter. This was his deal that they found. What they requested was $30,000 from me as a lender. They were going to give me a first lien position at 9% and 2 points. Okay. Not bad. Once again, remember, we got to stick and we have to invest less than $10,000. So if you're catching a famous theme, I don't have the money that's needed, but it doesn't matter if I don't have the money. I can think of unique ways and leverage the talent I have of networking with people, talking with people, and bringing other individuals. Now, if you're out there and you're listening to this and you're a lender, this is the best deal for you, man. Like, look at that. You can lend $30,000. You get a first lien position at a house that's worth at a bare minimum of $120,000. Love it. So let's go ahead and see what this really ended up looking like. Now, this is an exact picture of the promissory note. Once again, if you guys want these slides, we're very open. We'll email them over to you. Okay. So what ended up happening is we lent $30,000, but remember, I don't have $30,000. So if we look, the lender's name was listed as so. Quest Trust Company, for the benefit of Derreck's IRA 12345, right, as an undivided interest of 25%. I believe that's $6,000. But then I didn't just use my IRA, I used my HSA. At the time, this was my fiance, right? So that was Alyssa Gomez. And then notice Brian's back in there as well. And he's now my father-in-law, but his name's Andy. We end up using all of our retirement funds, partner them together to do one loan. This means when the borrower makes a payment, if we go back one slide real quick, you can see down here, the payment on a monthly basis is $225. Not bad. Right? That gets split between all of us according to our percentages. It's very simple. However, we do get 2 points on the back end, the 2 points being the $600 right here. And you'll hear points, you'll hear origination fees, same thing. It really is. And if you notice, we only drafted the note for 6 months. So I really did like this one. This was a quick, easy loan, and I didn't have to put forth a lot of my own capital. I had to bring in other capital, but if you look at what I put in a little over 6,000. So I love this deal because of that aspect. So what are some takeaways? A, if you're out there and you're listening to this and you're a borrower and you want to borrow money, all right, leverage people's retirement accounts. Let them take those 401ks, those IRAs, and lend you money from them because you can secure it, right? You can give them a lien on the property. You can pay that individual a better interest rate than what they're making in the stock market or mutual funds. I love to say that look how funds were gathered for my entire family, right? Profiting today and in the future, both, whether it's profiting today for the borrower, profiting in the future since we used our retirement accounts, we had security the whole time. And once again, remember, I'm a retirement expert. So all the profits for us as the lender were 100% tax free. Now you can do the same deal outside of an IRA. It doesn't matter, but we got to remember and figure out, hey, what is it that we were leveraging, right? And if I wanted to do this deal personally, you can. You just pay your taxes. Not a big deal. First off, my talent. What was my talent in this case? I'd argue my talent goes back to where I was saying me and Dawn, right? We both are very familiar with reading legal documents. So I knew exactly how I wanted to structure this promissory note where I didn't have to put up $30,000. I only put up $6,000, and I brought in other individuals. Don't be afraid to walk away from people, or don't walk away from a deal because you don't want to bring in other individuals. The network, right? I have a big network from attending events, not just like this, but just like the summit that Protect Your Wealth will be putting on here very soon. Attend as many events as you can. That's where you're going to meet other great individuals. And I love to say and walk through how I leveraged other people's capital to meet my needs today. I got a couple questions. Can a traditional employer IRA do this, or do they have to be self-directed? Great question, Bucky. So you're going to think I'm joking. Self-directed IRAs are fake and they're made up. They don't exist. We use that term as a marketing term. I like to describe it more this way, that if I have an IRA at Fidelity, Fidelity only lets me invest in stocks, bonds, CDs, mutual funds. We can take that same traditional IRA and set it up at Quest. We will only let you invest in real estate. There's not one that's better than the other. They're just different. If you want to buy Apple stock, you come here. If you want to buy property, you have to come to someone like Quest. So we use the term self-directed, but it's just a traditional IRA. Both companies set you up the same thing. So that was a long way to say, yes, absolutely, you can do that. You just have to have a custodian, Bucky, that will allow for it. So boom. Charlotte, is lending with other family members a prohibited transaction within your IRA? No, it's not. So I get this question a lot, and what she's bringing up is, I thought you couldn't lend money or something like that or work with a family member. What this means is you can't be on opposite sides of the fence. I can't use my IRA and lend money to my family, right? And family's very specific in the IRS, and we can define that later, but for now, we're just going to call it family. Notice that's a prohibited transaction. I use my IRA and I lent money. But if I take the same thing and I say, you know what, my IRA and my wife's IRA are going to lend money to someone else. Well, when they make a payment, right, they're paying both of us. We get our percentages. This is not prohibited because we're on the same side of the fence. I hope that helps to answer your question. Great question there. Love it. Isn't there a penalty or tax to pay when you withdraw money early from a 401k, 403b, et cetera, as you pull money out for retirement as leverage? Jade, yes, there is. But what you're talking about, Jade, is when you take a distribution for personal use. And every example I described so far, we never took a distribution out of the IRA for personal use. We let the IRA buy the investment. You can do the same thing. If you look at your 401k, Jade, your 401k bought Apple stock. Jade didn't buy it, the 401k did. So anytime you're using your retirement account can buy an investment. This is not a distribution, therefore no taxes, no penalties, or anything along those lines. Great question, guys. I love it. So keep the questions coming as we go through. We got 2 more case studies, I believe, to go through. Boom. Case study number 4. What's this one? Oh, a second lien position. Woo. Some of my best deals are second lien positions. But you have to be smart. So as we go through this, before I dive into it, can I lend money from my IRA to a company my son owns? You cannot, David. Great question. Unfortunately, the IRS sees that as a conflict of interest. If your son chose not to pay you back, right, are you going to sue him? Most likely not. So they give you a very specific list of people. If you want to send me an email, I can give you that whole list. But no, the IRA can't lend money to anyone like that. Do you pay taxes on your land? Absolutely, Sherry. In the case where the IRA bought the land, the IRA paid the taxes. But yep, land has property tax typically, just like if it would a single family home or anything along those lines. Good questions, guys. Keep them coming. So let's talk about the second lien position real fast. Now, I'll give you some pros and cons to it, but we'll talk about it briefly. Original borrower went to Jet Lending, which is a big hard money lending company. They borrowed $150,000, right? They were buying a price of, they bought a house for 120. The rehab was 50. The ARV was 300. But they started the rehab of the house and they found some mold. Well, what ended up happening is after they found mold, they needed an extra $10,000 because they didn't have enough capital for the rehab. Well, if you listen to this, and needing an extra $10,000 does not make or break the investment. Sure, the ROI is going to be slightly smaller, but overall, the extra 10 grand doesn't make or break the deal. So what happened is a small investor stepped in. In this case, it was myself. Now, I chose to lend them $10,000 on a second lien position. And when I did this, I want to make sure I have it structured properly. And too many times when we talk about second lien positions, someone is way over leveraged. They don't know what they're doing. They're not educated. And because of this, second lien positions can be very, very dangerous. But at the same time, if you know what you're doing and you don't mind paying an attorney to draft up good documents for you, then these can be so powerful because you don't need a lot of money. So first off, if I'm choosing to do a second lien position, you should be contacting the first lien holder, who's ever in first position. All right, let them know, hey, your borrower needs some extra help. They came to me. I don't mind taking a second position. But the reason you do this, a lot of times who's ever in first lien will actually probably just lend the additional 10 grand, solve the guy's problem. In this case, they didn't want to. That's okay with me. I'll take it upon myself. We go through, we explain the whole situation, right? And you got to remember, you've got to do your own due diligence. Just because they went through this doesn't mean the deal is bad. Just because they need extra money. So don't think that because someone's taken a second lien position that the deal is bad. Just make sure there's enough equity in the deal to make sure everything's going well. Okay? Know who your borrower is. Right? Know who the first lien holder is. Do not over leverage yourself. And for God's sakes, use a good attorney on any second lien position when you're lending this. So let's look at a little bit more kind of what this looked like. I chose to lend $10,000 and I used just my IRA alone. So this was what was really nice. I didn't have to do any partnering in this aspect because I started to actually build up enough capital. So if I'm going to lend $10,000, I'm actually very expensive. I charged 5 points, 5 origination fees. That's a lot. But I charged those points on the back end. And in this case, on the back end was only $500. So I know sometimes we hear points and you think that's really expensive. But 5 points being $500 on a back end of a deal, that's not too bad. In addition, I wanted a monthly payment of 1% a month. So if we listen to this, I'm charging 17% interest on an annual rate. 17%. That's a lot. But look at the dollar figure. $500 in points, $100 a month in interest. That's not bad. And that's something that this guy can definitely afford. If they can afford a $100 a month payment, probably not going to do the deal as it is, right? I passed the attorney fees off to the borrower. This is key because remember, I want to use a very good attorney to draft up the documents to make sure I'm safe, okay? So therefore, that attorney's going to charge me a fee, and if you're going to borrow my money, you're going to cover that fee. This is a great aspect to go through. It really, really is. At the end of the deal, it only ended up lasting 2 months. So I made $500 immediately, another $200 in interest. I received my 10 grand back. And what was really, really unique is across, and it's called the Wealth Club. I got known to be as the second lien dude. I'll do small loans. Man, that's pretty cool. I now kind of start to build this little reputation where I'm known for doing these very small second lien position loans, and it spreads fast, right? Man, I just made a quick, easy $700. And remember, guys, if you look at it, I made a 17% rate of return. If you annualized it, if you look at it over just a 2-month time frame, that's literally I don't even know what that is. That's a big rate of return. So you got to kind of look at it from both standpoints of view, okay? I love these type of things. It works out well. So what was leveraged in this? First off, once again, my talent. I knew which attorney to contact, right? I knew how to structure the deal, right? And I passed off those fees because I didn't want to make extra money or anything to the borrower. And you've seen it in every single one of these case studies was I leveraged my network. So got an anonymous attendee here who asked a unique question. For a larger transaction / investment, can we combine HSAs, 401ks, IRAs, Roth IRAs of the same person to accumulate the total of the investment? Absolutely. You can combine all of your accounts to do one deal. But if you do this, I would never recommend it if you're buying a single family home. Only be combining these type of things if it's a very, very passive deal, right? Not something that you're going to be active with. So if you're going to combine all of these, notice I was showing you combining these accounts as a lender. I like to be a lender combining these because the borrower makes a payment, right? We're very protected. A payment's easy to split up. That being said, if you're going to be combining these, you'll hear Clint Coons talk a lot about setting up an LLC maybe in the middle or maybe a trust, right? And let each IRA on the Schedule A own a section, maybe a percentage of that. Let the LLC be the umbrella to hold all of it. Then let the LLC go do that investment. It'll help kind of section some of that out. Actually, I teach a whole class on that as well. Great question. So it can be done. But before you do, talk to me about what is the investment. Because some investments, this makes sense. Some I'll be like, hey, look, you're putting a lot at risk. And I'll explain why. So good question. Love it. You guys are doing great. So overall, guys, this is the last case study of the night right here, and then we'll close it out. This is a rental. I love this. Now, I do believe I actually went over my $10,000 limit, but not by much. I want to say I went to 12. But a friend of mine had a property. His tenants actually just moved out, and he no longer kind of wanted to deal with it. Pretty easy, pretty basic. Love this type of situation. He was an older gentleman, and what was unique is he just gave me the keys. When the tenants left, he said, here's the keys. Go check out the house for me. Make me an offer to let me know what you think it's worth. So this is an exact picture of the house, this pink thing that was right here. And I kind of walked through, I did some research, and I made a decent offer. I really did. What was cool is when I went and did the walkthrough, I brought my contractor with me, and this is the exact quote he gave me. I rounded up to $28,000, but he quoted me $27,675 to pretty much get the house back in what I would consider to be full rental shape, So we didn't have to replace the roof or replace the AC or anything, but like, hey, we're going to replace the floors, do some fresh paint, remodel the kitchen, remodel 2 bathrooms, put some new fan fixtures in to make it look good and pretty. So I really did appreciate this, but what's nice is I got to go through this. So I made it an offer. This is actually a copy of the settlement statement right here. but the buying price was 130 grand. We didn't use a realtor. Now, I would never recommend that. As if you're a realtor, man, I learned my lesson on this. Definitely use a realtor, but we didn't. So we saved a little bit of money there. We were paying the property taxes for the entire year for the guy, and we were going to cover all his closing cost. That was the deal. All right. So not only was it 130 grand, but we're going to pay the property taxes because he owned it already for more than 6 months out of the year, and any closing costs, we're going to cover all of that. So here's what's unique though, is when we brought in the lender and stuff like that. Let's see, it should show it on there somewhere. Boop, boop, boop. See if it was on the next slide. Oh, I needed $7,600 to close. Let's see, where does that show it in there? Maybe if you add all those up, that 3,700, the 1,200, the 8, the 9, the 200. Yeah, so I bet you if you add all those up. So in total, to close on this $130,000 property, I had to bring $7,600 to closing. That was it. Huh. I have less than 10 grand. I can buy an actual full rental property for this price, right? This house right here, I can buy, if you think about it, for $7,600 because that's what I need to bring to closing. So if we look at actually what the math was on this, right? The lender was willing to give me 85% loan to value. This is pretty common. You'll hear 70, 80, 85. Very rarely will you see 90, but some of them will. The ARVs in the area was 190,000 is what we estimated. And ultimately, that means that he's going to give us 161,000 minus the 30,000 in rehab. So once again, remember, we only need to buy the house for $30,000. So we're coming ahead a little bit. So I love this aspect. This worked out really well. So what did the lender want? All right. Wanted a good contractor with a proven track record. If you're going to do this, you can't call your cousin and say, hey, I need you to just write me a quote for whatever to get by the lender. All right. I, as a borrower, had to have a good reputation, meaning I need a good credit score. Right. I need to leverage. If I can't leverage anything else, I'm going to leverage my credit. And the borrower had to see on there that I had good credit to make sure that we could go through this. A full scope of the project and, man, proof of other projects as well. What was nice is I used Blink Lending out in Texas, which the guy that runs the company I'm very familiar with. He's actually spoken on the Quest platform multiple times. So I built up this really good reputation with him. So he trusted with me just going through this project. So I needed to understand what were the lender's needs to make sure I can satisfy everything that we went through. Currently, I still own this property. Now we have it rented. I think I said up there 1,800. It's actually rented for 1,750 because we just had a tenant switch. But we have it rented for 1,750. The mortgage that we pay is $685 a month. Plus, we have to pay taxes and insurance, which we did not escrow. So we cut that check at the end of the year. It's a big, big check that we always pay. Man, we got so lucky. When it appraised after that, because we wanted to refinance it so we could get that lower $685 monthly payment, it appraised for $210. Remember, we thought it was going to go ahead and be estimated at $190. It appraised for higher than that. Luckily, we chose to leave all that equity in there. The only reason we chose to leave all the equity in there, remember, we bought the house for $130. So, but we chose that because honestly, I wanted a lower monthly payment. I'm really glad I did this because a lot of times you'll hear, we'll do the cash out refi, pull out all that cash and put it in something else. Absolutely, you can do this. And this would have been a good move if I had another investment lined up. The problem is I didn't have another investment lined up. So we left the equity in the home. And when our tenants did leave, we had to go through about a 3 or 4 month time frame where we didn't have any tenants. And it was nice having a pretty cheap mortgage payment of $685. So that was really, really, really nice, and why I'm glad we left the equity in there. So what did I leverage, guys? My talent, once again, just knowing how to go through people. I leveraged my network, knowing individuals and what I wanted to buy the house, and I leveraged my credit. Remember, I don't have $1 million at that point in time to go ahead and leverage, so I need to leverage everything else that I can. So looks like I got one more question. Can I pull money from my own IRA for a residential based business that I'm opening? You cannot, Josh. So great question. Joshua asked like, hey, can I use my IRA to really invest into my own business? You cannot. And I describe it this way. I always say that you are a taxable entity. So if you make money, if you make profit, if you start a company, all of that is taxable. The IRS says your IRA is non-taxable. As a matter of fact, you can read IRS publication 408 little a, and it will tell you that your IRA is labeled as a tax-exempt trust. Well, if I know it's a tax-exempt trust, right, and I'm a taxable entity, I can't cross this line. I can't use my taxable entity to invest into my non-taxable entity. I can't use my non-taxable entity to invest in my taxable entity. I'm playing both sides of the same coin. So unfortunately, you cannot. You can use your IRA to invest into anybody except yourself, spouse, parents, kids, and their companies, right? And I'll break down that list a little bit more in a different class, but ultimately, it always comes down to that same thing. So good question, Joshua. I appreciate it. All right. So, oh, now here comes a lot of questions. What about my girlfriend's IRA for my business? Oh, so Joshua, this is it's definitely more in the gray area. On the surface, yes, you could use your girlfriend's IRA. But do you and your girlfriend share a home? Do you live together? If you tell me yes, the conservative side of me says, hey, you can't do it because the IRS is not that dumb. In addition, if you get married to your girlfriend, Joshua, right, the IRS can backdate the transaction to the time you did it and say, hey, look, even though you weren't married then, you're married to her now. And they call this a prohibited transaction. And really what they can do is take away pretty much your retirement account. So I love the question. Yes, on the surface you can, but boy, do you have to be careful. You really, really do. So Bucky asks, do you help to bring people with IRAs looking for investments together, other networking opportunities? We do, Bucky. Quest, we do host multiple events every week, whether they're online. If you're in Texas, they are also in person. You can attend any of those. Just send me an email, or you can email info@questtrust.com. They'll send you a link to all of our classes. Ignoring our classes, though, Protect Your Wealth does the summit that they have right here coming up in April, where you can do the same thing, where you can meet other investors just like you're doing right now, even though it's in an online platform. Sherry asks, we can't buy a house with an IRA for a resident to live at for ourselves or our parents. That's correct, Sherry. You can't use your IRA to buy a house for yourself. You can't use your IRA to buy a house for your parents, grandparents, kids, grandkids, anything like that. So it has to be what the IRS calls a real investment. When you're investing in family, they don't consider that investment. So it has to be something else. I can buy a house with my IRA and I can rent it out to you, but I can't rent it out to my parents. So good question. Cool, thank you. Yeah, no problem. It's not even a question, but I like it. You guys are good. All right, guys. So with that being said, I always like to end this by saying there's some great ways to build your network. Make sure you have business cards if you're going to be doing anything in person. Don't be shy. Unfortunately, if you guys want to build wealth, you want to be a real estate investor, you want to do something, you can't be shy. You got to say it loud. You got to say it proud. Have a short elevator pitch ready. Go to local RIAs. Go to a meetups. Join every online event you can. They're cheap. They're easy to get into, right? And if you can't afford to travel when you can to the big conferences. There's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of really, really good ones. You know, you'll see me at multiple of them. You'll see Protect Your Wealth at them. That's actually how me and Don met. We met at a different event, at a residential assisted living event out in Phoenix, you know? And look, a year later, we're still doing stuff together because we were able to travel and go to stuff. So guys, this is my email. I'm going to leave it up here on the screen just for a moment, right? Answer these last few questions, but feel free to email me. Let me know if you have any questions. Bring them. Can I please get your slides? Thank you so much. Bucky, absolutely send me an email. It's right there on the screen. I'll email you my slides right away. So love that. I see the big long question, Patricia. No worries. David says, excellent presentation. Thank you, David. I appreciate it. Sherry, thank you. No worries. I like the slides, please. Melanie, I see that. If you can email me, I don't have a way to copy that in the where I'm at right now. I'm at my house. If you send me an email, I will absolutely email you all my slides. I'm very open about it. So I love that aspect. So Patricia, let's get to this big one. Let's see what this says. I have a rental property and I have left all my equity in it just to purchase my second property and would like to rent and hold. My husband has a retirement and is disabled. However, would it be smart to start an IRA in our 50s to keep investing? Patricia, I am the retirement expert. So when you ask me that, I'm absolutely going to say yes, right? But that's because that's my point of view. Everyone's going to be in a different point in their life. The biggest reason why I think yes still is if we start in, and we're going to start with a Roth IRA as an example. A Roth IRA today, that same rental property you own, every time you see rent, is 100% tax-free. If you did a fix and flip, it's tax-free, right? If you start investing in other things, gold and silver, minerals, oil and gas, stocks and mutual funds, the income is tax-free. You as an individual are that taxable entity, so it doesn't work for you that way, but the IRA does. So I always think it makes sense to start an IRA, and there's a lot of good custodians out there. I represent Quest, but there's a lot of them out there. So I hope that helps, Patricia. Let's see. Was there anything else? I believe that is all the questions, Don, and I am done. Very creative projects, amazing presentation. Thank you, guys. Don't thank me, honestly. Thank Protect Your Wealth. Thank Don. Thank Kendall. They're the ones who take all the time. They go through a lot of effort to make sure they bring in good quality speakers, which is also what they're doing at the summit, coming right up around in 2 or 3 weeks. So if you do have questions for me, you let me know. Get your IRA set up before tax filing deadline. You can still make contributions for last year. I'll waive any fees that it takes to set them up if you want to set them up through me, but that's you can set up a self-directed IRA with just about anybody. So Don, I think I'm done.
Yeah. Okay. So some commonly asked questions that we always get. What's then the difference between you guys and TD Ameritrade or Charles Schwab? And if you don't mind, if you call up one of the brokerage accounts, they'll set up an IRA for you. Absolutely. And then you call them and say, hey, I'd like to buy a house. And most often they'll say, oh, you can't do that. That's a prohibited transaction. Well, no, it's prohibited for them. It's an outright lie. They're saying, look, they don't specialize in real estate. And so their company doesn't want to give up that money and send it to another custodian. There are custodians that specialize in gold and silver. There's custodians that specialize in real estate. There's custodians that specialize in stocks and bonds. And you guys do non-traditional type of real estate, right?
Exactly. So I tell people that you come to Quest because you want to go to like a Chick-fil-A. You don't go to Chick-fil-A to order a burger. You go there to order chicken. Quest, we specialize in real estate. Our company is broken down to different types of real estate departments, right? So we have a department that only deals in single family homes. And we break down the single family homes from being joint ventures, wholesales, options, and actually doing fix and flips or rentals. Then we have a department that only deals in notes, whether you want to be a lender, buying a note, or fractionalizing notes and selling payments. We deal in all of that. Then we have what we call a private entity department that really deals in more of the commercial stuff. These will be your syndications, investing in multifamily and storage units and senior living, right? So we are experts when it comes to real estate. You don't come to me to buy stocks. You don't go to Fidelity to buy real estate. You go to them to buy stocks, right? You go to Charles Schwab for an annuity. There's companies, like you said, that are great for gold and silver. So whatever it is you want to invest in, that's where you set up a retirement account. And that's what makes the most sense.
Perfect. Okay, we got a couple more questions. I'll let you read those.
So Tamara asks, so you can use your own IRA money to buy a rental or flip for your own LLC, ? No, not for your own LLC. I describe it this way, as I say, your IRA is its own entity. When you set one up, it will have its own name, its own address. It can have its own tax ID number. even its own level of asset protection. When I set up an LLC has its own name, its own address, it can have its own asset protection, et cetera, right? So when I found that house and I make an offer, right? I still work with the agent. I still work with the title company and the bank if it's debt leveraged. But when I read the buyer's name, do I want to put my LLC's name? If I put my LLC's name, the money's coming from my LLC. The money goes back to the LLC. Therefore, it's taxable. I want to use my IRA. Great. You put your IRA's name. The money comes from the IRA. The profit goes back to the IRA. This is why it's tax exempt. And that's the difference. As the investor, you're not doing anything differently. You're choosing which vehicle to use. That's all.
Yeah, and tax-wise, there's some very big differences. If you if you're looking for depreciation deductions, well, you're not going to get that in an IRA because it's a tax-free environment. So if you're looking for big, you got a commercial property, you want the huge tax advantages of repairs and depreciation, you're not going to get that in an IRA. Sometimes it's good to hold real estate in an LLC. Sometimes it's really good, especially things that are moving fast or that are you to do those in an IRA.
Absolutely.
So perfect. All right.
I got 2 more questions, and I love the one that I typed an answer in there from Harriet. Hey, can I open an IRA if you? Absolutely, you can. Right? Send me an email. Right? I put my email there. You can see my email there on the screen right now. It's like my name. But just send me an email, and I'll get you an IRA set up very quickly. Great question.
Good.
We got one more. Hey, I have a small Roth IRA. Can I move that to a self-directed Roth? No problem, or fees? Absolutely, you can. Right? We can always move that current Roth IRA at any point in time. And if you're coming from Protect Your Wealth, I won't charge you any fee to get one established. That being said, don't move and set up a new self-directed IRA because I'm a good speaker, because you like the presentation. You're moving it over because you found an investment, all right, and you're ready to move forward with something like that. I can set up an IRA for you in 24 hours or less, right? It's very quick. It's very easy. So if you want to set up an IRA for me, let's do it. But don't do it just because of this. Make sure you're like, hey, great, I'm going to use my account and I'm going to be investing in real estate, all right? So I'm a terrible salesperson when it comes to that type of stuff. John asked.
Let me answer a question that I always get, and that's dealing with partners. I like what you said about, yes, you can, your IRA can partner with your Roth IRA, with your HSA plan, it can do all of those things. But be careful. We had one student that had 7 grandchildren. She'd gifted them some money.
Yep.
And then her and all 7 kids partnered on a single family home, which means that all the rent had to come in and be divided 8 ways.
Terrible.
Every expense had to come in and be divided 8 ways. And it became like a nightmare to run it. I love partners, but be careful.
So, and that's the thing, is we had a question similar to that earlier on. And that's why I said, look, if you're going to be partnering IRAs and stuff together, make sure it's something passive, not something active.
Yes.
I'd argue rentals are very active. You can tell me they're not, they're active. Okay.
Yeah.
I appreciate the passive income I get from the rental, but then my property management calls me and says, hey, tenants being a pain in the butt. Great. So don't use a partnering aspect for active stuff. Make sure if you're going to do that, it's very passive.
Every time there's a maintenance fee, it's got to be split.
Every
time there's a property tax or insurance payment. 8 different ways, and it becomes a nightmare. Don't do that. Yeah.
So, couple questions on here, guys. Let's see. We got a whole bunch of them. I didn't realize we'd get so many of them. You guys are killing it. So, Don, if you don't want me to answer them all, but let me know.
Let's go.
Perfect.
Let's go.
So, right, John's asking me, how does the 5-year rule apply in these scenarios? Now, what he's talking about, for those of you who don't know, is the Roth IRA does have a 5-year seasoning period. When we're talking about all these things, we're talking about investments, right? So earnings aren't going to be subjected to this 5-year rule. In addition, if you start a new self-directed Roth IRA with me, I always tell people that the 5-year clock you have over here at your other custodian comes with it. That 5-year rule is put in place by the IRS, not the banking institution. So the IRS doesn't care where your accounts sit, right? It goes with it. So you don't need to start a new 5-year clock. And we can dive into that a lot more, John, if you need a little bit more to that. Is the IRA then exposed to liability? It absolutely can be, right? But an IRA has different levels of asset protection than typically you'd see like in a C Corp, S Corp, LLC, or something like that. The first thing is an IRA has a level of asset protection from creditors. This is really, really unique, right? Whereas like if you're to file for bankruptcy, very rarely are they going to go after that. However, this is where Clint Coons and I will butt heads. Is I think too many times asset protection is sold as some sort of magic bullet that is always going to protect you. All right. And realistically, I like to use the term pierce the veil. If I have a property owned in my IRA and the tenant he lives in New York, let's say, it's the winter, he slips and falls and hits his head on the sidewalk, right? And then he tries to sue me. Well, guys, my IRA is most likely going to be protected in a scenario in that case. Same thing. The tenant says, hey, Derek, the roof is leaking. Can you fix it? I say, I don't need to do that right now. We'll get to it later. Hey, Derek, a week goes by. They tell me the same thing. The week goes by and they tell me the same thing. And the roof collapses and kills their dog. When that goes to court, if you don't think the judge will say, hey, well, we're going to be able to pierce that veil of that LLC to go other assets and things like that, I would argue that you're crazy. And that's where me and Clint Coons will say, oh, no, he'll say, yes, it protects you. And I'll say, man, you have negligence there. And a judge, in most cases, will be able to pierce those veils in those cases. So when you ask about these things, people always go to the absolute worst case scenario. But I think you really have to look at yourself. Are we talking about something where you're being negligent? Or are we talking about something that's actually a real, well, like we just mentioned, the guy slipped and fell in New York in the wintertime and he's trying to sue you. Like, come on, guys. So I hope that helps. And Don, I don't know if you'd have anything to add to that.
Yeah, let me take a second, because when you're talking liability, there's two sources of lawsuits. One from inside of the bubble, the legal bubble. So a rental property inside of their, there's a lawsuit inside of that. And on that, yes, there's liability, but you're going to carry good insurance and hopefully you're going to manage the equity, and you're not going to have too many rental properties in the same IRA. Or you set up as many IRAs as you want under your name. That's okay. The question is, what happens if you personally get sued? You run over my kid today, I sue you, can I take your IRA away from you? And there are different types of accounts. If anything that was employer contributed, it will be generally protected by ERISA. Yep. Can't touch it. But ERISA doesn't protect individual retirement accounts. Those are state protected. And the states vary very differently. Like Wisconsin will protect up to $68,000 in an IRA. Oh, that sucks. There are 4 states that will protect traditional but not Roth IRAs. That's stupid. And so state specific, but generally they're protected from outside creditors up to about $1 million. Florida and Texas unlimited, just like their homestead. And if you'd like, maybe I can do a webinar on how to protect from outside liability. My biggest concern is that you blow it up from inside. And
from one of those prohibited transactions or something, yeah.
Either a prohibited transaction, and I see this where we're finding that if you're in the middle of a lawsuit and the plaintiff's attorney coming against you finds out you have a self-directed IRA, what they're going to do is they're going to subpoena all your records to see if you did any prohibited transactions. Therefore, you lose whatever state laws that they have. It's not treated as an IRA, it's treated as an individual investment, and therefore you've blown it up really from inside because you did something prohibited. I'm not worried about the IRS setting it aside and saying, okay, you bought a Diet Coke when you went to Home Depot they might disregard that one transaction. I'm worried about plaintiffs' attorneys, and so if you'd like, I'll schedule this maybe a couple months out, and we'll do just a webinar on how to protect IRAs from outside liabilities. Is that something your
Yeah.
people would be interested in Derreck?
Absolutely, John. I think that'd be a great class to do.
Okay, great. Okay.
So I'm jumping around some of these real quick, just because I've been reading through these. Valerie's asking, when are the dates again for the April Protect Your Wealth class? Do you want to mention that real fast?
It is April 24th, 25th, 26th. It's a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday class. April 24th, 25th, 26th. Yep.
Awesome. Got a lot of thank yous here. Love that. Tamara at the top was saying, hey, would I be able to sell a flip myself as a real estate agent? I'm assuming you mean like if my IRA owns the house, can I be listed as the agent? You know, there's a lot of debate on this. I would argue that you can, but you cannot take a commission. Okay. And the only reason I argue that you can is I always say you can use your brain, not your brawn. I am not a real estate agent, right? That is not my expertise. That is your expertise. That's why you want to be listed. Why would you go to another agent if that's your expertise? And I think that's a good argument. You're doing a good fiduciary responsibility. The minute you take a commission, though, Tamara, that's where I think we're crossing a different line. And now I'm going to say, hey, look, that's a prohibited transaction. So
I would agree with that. Yep.
The difference between an IRA, Roth, and a 401k Roth. First off, an IRA or a Roth IRA is for an individual. An individual set it up. A 401k Roth, right? An employer and an employee are contributing to it. So typically the employer has full control over what is going to be invested in and stuff like that. And they assign what they call a trustee. Where the IRA, it's an individual retirement arrangement or individual retirement account, depending on which revenue code you read. So you have more control. What's nice, though, is the IRS doesn't look at it that way. What you're talking about is the banking institutions. When I have a tax-deferred bucket, that's my tax-deferred bucket. This could be my 401k, a traditional IRA, a SEP IRA. That's how R&Ds are calculated. Well, if I have a Roth bucket, that's my post-tax bucket. So that's my Roth 401k, my Roth IRA, right? So try to think of it that way. I always like to look at people's situations on an individual level, Gary. So email me if you want to dive into yours things. John says, thanks for listening last week. No problem, John.
On the asset protection side, remember if a 401k is employer contributed, they at least contributed some. You might have done. So that's going to be protected by ERISA. Remember when O.J. Simpson, he kind of killed his wife, but kind of didn't, but he sort of did, but blow didn't fit. Okay, but and the two assets they couldn't take was his Florida home, protected by Florida Homestead, and his NFL pension plan, protected by ERISA, federal law that protects that. IRAs aren't under that. And so a lot of people will take a 401k that's protected from outside lawsuits, roll that into a Roth IRA. And what you've done in the process is you've lost that federal protection, and now you're only dealing with state protection. So be careful of that. And if you're not doing anything risky, it doesn't matter. But if you are, then but it's the same bucket, just like Derreck said. Perfect.
Yeah. Two more questions, guys, and then we'll be ending up everything, it looks like. So
then we better wrap it up. Yep.
Yeah. Can a self-directed Roth IRA be used for rental property? Absolutely, it can. All right. This is something that me and Donald were just talking a little bit ago. I would argue, though, you don't want to do a lot of partnering in this. You would just want the IRA to buy it directly. The IRAs can take loans as well, which we can do a different class on. Just be careful if you go through those. Can part of my of an HSA be used to set up an ESA? Not in the way that you think. All right. The only way that would ever work is if you took a distribution, took constructive receipt of the cash, and then you chose to just make a contribution to an ESA, right? But notice that's really all you did. So ultimately, guys, ESAs have such a low contribution limit of $2,000, and that's the max you can put in each year. Put in something, start one, put in $100, put in $500, put in something, but I wouldn't recommend using an HSA, taking a distribution to go through that. So Don, you guys are awesome. I hope everyone out there like this, and email me if you have questions. Make sure you sign up for the summit coming up here in April.
And Derreck, thank you for your very generous. You're waiving your setup fee for our students. That's incredible. Thank you.
Yeah. So typically we do charge $100 to set up a self-directed IRA. But I tell people, anyone coming from Protect Your Wealth, let me know and I'll take care of that fee for you. So we'll get
Good.
rid
I'm
of
gonna
it.
send all my kids and all my grandkids over to you, and now.
Bring them on, Don. You do so much for us, and not just us, but everyone else. So thank you.
Students, thank you for your participation, and thank you for your questions, and thank you for your patience. And we know it's getting really late, especially on the East Coast. Thank you for being here. We'll be back next week with last minute tax tips. Before you file your taxes, we've got a really, really good attorney, accountant, CPA on next week. So next Tuesday. And Derek, appreciate your time. So if you're interested, if you're doing real estate, I talk to these guys first. They know what they're doing. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
All
Don.
right.
Bye, everybody.
Everyone, have a great evening. Bye-bye. Thanks for being here.